Of malls is one thing, but when the fires didn't stop burning, they started targeting schools, hospitals and cell phone towers. And then claims emerged of planned attacks on Durban's harbour, key waterworks, plants and electricity substations. And that's when the KwaZulu-Natal violence became increasingly sinister. Now that we know one of the dozen alleged instigators behind the attacks is in handcuffs, South Africans deserve to know who these people are. It's alleged they're former Mkhonto Sizwe operatives leading an apparent insurrection. But what's definite at this stage? Well, we've turned to criminologist and political analyst Guy Lamb for some answers. Guy, I've given you a tough job here. Is it a given truth that these so-called instigators are said to be former MK operatives?
Well, that is unclear at the moment. I mean, we know that there have been groups that have been calling themselves, or a group calling themselves the MK Veterans Association, where had Cole Niehaus spokesperson for them, that have been disbanded formally by the African National Congress. And of course, they've been disputing that and fighting back around that. But certainly, obviously, they were present at Nkandla prior to former President Zuma being arrested. They've been doing a lot of saber rattling. So certainly some of their members may be involved. I think in the sense of that's a potential. I think in terms of those who were very experienced MK operatives during the armed struggle would be, quite advanced age now. And many of them are loyal to the ANC, not necessarily to factions. So I think we may have seen some who are calling themselves former veterans, or may have been veterans that are aligned with factions that certainly support Zuma and his colleagues. So there's a potential there. I think what we really need to be looking at, and where there's been quite a lot of evidence, is former members of the intelligence services. Some may still be associated with the intelligence services. There have been names that have been thrown around, and certainly when this kind of violence is happening and there's some insurrectionist objectives, it seems those who have a lot of skill in kind of counter-espionage, counterinsurgency have engaged in these type of things before. Because what we've seen is these kind of operations have been done at a smaller scale, but within ANC circles. So it's been factions fighting factions, and these kind of tactics have been used there. What we're seeing now is that spilled out beyond the ruling party, and it's being used to attack, or certainly plans to attack state infrastructure, and plans to weaken the government. So, there's some possible MK involvement here, but I would certainly think that those who had, kind of fought bravely for the ANC, had seen real combat action, I don't think many of those would have been involved. I think it's more those who are identifying as MK, but not necessarily were MK.
The first time the word insurrection became sort of on the zeitgeist, so something that we all understood, really was when we saw those Trump supporters attacking Capitol Hill. Is this an insurrection?
Yeah, I mean, what happened on Capitol Hill at that particular incident of storming the Capitol, prior to that, there'd been sort of insurrectionist language. There'd been a lot of social media and media kind of goading and motivations around this, and then the storming happened. And when the storming happened, that was clearly an act of insurrection. So that's one example. Another example is if we look at what's happening in Cabo Delgado, that's very clearly an insurrection, a group uprising, attacking state infrastructure, attacking state personnel in terms of soldiers and military, and trying to expand the influence. In the case of what we're seeing in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, is the types of acts are largely more sabotage, they're kind of rioting, there's kind of collective violence, but it seems that some of the intentions and some of the objectives of certain individuals were insurrectionist, because it's about attacking the state. It's about trying to undermine and weaken the state by attacking state institutions. So insurrection is always about attacking the state, or symbols of the state, or key aspects and infrastructure of the state. So they're clear that there were insurrectionist plans that haven't really been put into fruition, but certainly the objectives are there.
All right, that was criminologist and political analyst Guy Lamb. We could chat for hours about the causes of this, and even Cyril Ramaphosa himself, who initially said there was ethnic mobilization, recanted on this and said there are several reasons. We'll unpack those as the weeks go on.